Hello, good morning from New York. Today we will be talking about inference question. This question is one of the questions that comes in the reading section in the TOEFL, and it can be time-consuming questions. And it is perhaps the most tough question in the whole TOEFL. Luckily today we have Dr. Toefl with us, and she's going to give us some tips and tricks about these questions so that the next time you take your TOEFL exam, you will ace the question, master it, and get your dream score. So let's start it. Well, first, what is an inference? An inference is that you need to take the information or evidence from the text, and then you have to read in between the lines and then combine everything together and figure out what the author is saying. And this is what makes this question hopefully very tough, very time consuming, as we said. So, how we can make this inference? As I said again, you have some clue from the text and you need to add your schema, your checks and tips that we are going to learn today. So the first one, our first one will be, our first tip will be look out for absolute words. Absolute words. And these are, for example, always, never, completely, totally. Let's say an example. For example, if the sentence in the reading states that it's never, this absolute word, never rained in Alexandria during 19th century or something, then you can infer that the weather was dry at that time, right? Okay. And tip number two is look for um, limiting limiting words. Limiting words like usually, rarely, often. So here an example will be he is rarely late. Well, we can infer that he's usually on time. He's usually on time. And another tip is number three, look for time markers. Time markers. Like first, second, third, later, next, and so on, etc. For example, if the passage states that the pharaoh, the pharaoh, it was one of the Egyptian king, pharaoh came after Mon, came after um, Mon, another king. So you can infer that Mon was actually older than Pharaoh, right? Then, because I have seven tips for you, so we are in tip number 4. So our tip number 4 is modal verbs. And these modal verbs come a lot in the TOEFL. You may want to look after these modal verbs. Modal verbs such as can, may, must, and have to. So an example here will be, for example, if the passage states that everybody in Egypt had to pay, had to pay tax for the pharaoh, the king. So we can infer that the pharaoh had a strong policy force. So we can infer pharaohs had a strong policy force, right? Okay, so with that, we're gonna move to number 5, tip number 5. So our tip number 5 will be check for uh, preposition. Yes, preposition. And what I mean by preposition here is they establish, because these preposition they establish the relationship, establish the relationship between nouns, between nouns. For example, if the passage states that the Nile River flows, for example, if the passage states that the Nile River flows from a position from the south, the south should be capital here, from the south, then you can infer what we can infer here? That its flow to the north, so that the Nile River flows to the north. Okay, and the tip number 6 will be check for verb tenses. They put things into order. Yeah, they really do in the TOEFL. So, for example, if the passage states that it was the oldest pyramid, for example, here it was the oldest pyramid. So you can infer that it is no longer the oldest because the sentence says it was the oldest pyramid. So we can infer it is no longer the oldest, right? Yeah. Okay. So, and last but not least, number 7 is to look for superlative. Look for superlative. Superlatives like or such as most, least, farther, farthest, and so on, etc. For example, if the passage states that, again, that it is the oldest pyramid, then you can infer that there are no older pyramids. Because this one, it says it is the oldest pyramid. So there are no older pyramids. This is what you can infer. Okay, so these are the 7 tips. Go again to the first one. It's absolute word, like always, never, completely, totally. So if it says it's never rained in Alexandria, if you see like an absolute word, then you can infer that in this case, they say it's never rained in Alexandria, so we can infer that the weather was dry. Another tip, which is limiting words, like usually, rarely, often. So if it says he's rarely late, then he's usually on time. And also make sure that if you have some time markers like first, second, later, next, before, after, and stuff, then you may want to pay attention to those words because in your answer, it will help you to get to the answer efficiently and with less time consuming. And for example, the pharaoh came after mom, after another king. So that means that that king was older than pharaoh. And for number four, also pay really attention to modal verbs because they can really help you find your answer also very easily, quickly. So modal verbs like can, may, must, have to. And this example in everybody, for example, everybody in Egypt had to pay tax for the pharaohs. So we can infer that that king had a strong policy because he made everybody else pay taxes. And for our tip number five, preposition are also something that you want to make keep in mind because they can establish relationship between nouns and in this example, Nile River flows from the south, then you can infer that it flows to the north. Um, and number six, it's verb tense because these verb tense, as I said, they can also help you with. They put things. TOEFL, they usually put things in order. So uh, you may want to pay really close attention to the verb tense. Look, those two sentences are the same, but you can infer different things. If you have a past tense here and um, they they give you in the answer, or may want to say, okay, it was the oldest pyramid. So you may want to infer that it is no longer the oldest. Maybe some pyramids was built or built after that pyramid because here they talk about past tense. And and if they give you a superlative, which is here the oldest, then it's still the same inference, I guess. Yeah, there is no older pyramid. It was the oldest. Okay, here I may confuse you guys with giving you like anyway. Here's what you want to take from these slides is that pay attention to the verb tense and also pay attention to the superlative. Because I gave the same example in both in the verb tense and the superlative, it may confuse you as it's confused me right now. Okay, anyway, those are the 7 tips. And let's look at an example here to practice. They say that it can be inferred from the passage that arable land in Egypt is expensive, widespread, is wet, has many problems. So we can go and read the paragraph from the beginning. Egypt is the 15th most populous country in the world. The vast majority of its 77 million population lives near the bank of the Nile rivers, where the only arable agricultural land is found. A large area of land are part of the Sahara Desert and are sparsely inhabited. About half of the Egyptian people today are urban, living in the densely populated center of Greater Cairo, the largest city in Africa and Alexandria. So, what the passage tells us is the arable land in Egypt is only near the Nile River here. It's near the Nile River. Let me change. Okay, so here the passage tells us that the Arabian land in Egypt is only near the Nile River. The passage also tells us that the, it's a densely populated, that Egypt has a very large population and that most of that population lives near the river, the Nile River. So large parts of Egypt are inhabited. So we can infer that everybody in Egypt wants to live near the Nile River. And this makes the land near the Nile River the only Arabian land in Egypt. So it can be inferred about Arabian land in Egypt from the passage that it's very expensive because it is close to the river and everyone else want to live close to it. So we can infer that it must be very expensive since everybody want to live in this place. Okay, so, and in the second question, they say it can be inferred from the passage at Cairo. So we go again to the passage and see. Now let's take another color. Let's take the one. So the second question tells you that it can be inferred from the passage that Cairo is. So again, if you want to read the whole passage, since we already read the passage, so we can just read from this part because we find our answer in this first part of the passage. So we can just continue from where we left. So about half of the Egyptian people today are urban, living in the densely populated center of Greater Cairo, the largest city in Africa and Alexandria. So the only information that this passage provides about Cairo is that is it the largest city in Africa, and therefore Cairo must be, the answer says, hot, nice, dangerous, old. If it's densely populated and it's the largest city, then it must be, we can infer that it's very hot because there are a lot of people living out there. Okay, I hope this video helps with the inference and maybe you want to go over those tips more than once in order to absorb them and just to keep them in mind because they are just the small markers that can help you find the answer. Okay, with that being said, thank you so much. If you like the video, please thumbs up, subscribe, and until next time, Dr. Toefl wishing you happy holidays and wonderful.